Whenever you meet someone with this shared obsession of mandolins, it just feels like you have this instant connection, right? And that's exactly how I felt when I recently met Darren Nicholson for the first time. We'd never gotten together in person, but recently he was kind enough to come down from his home in Western North Carolina to hang out here and nerd out about all things mandolin. And he was even kinder to bring down a selection from his mandolin collection, including this legendary instrument, a 1923 Gibson F5 signed by Lloyd Allier Lore. Darren, thank you so much for being here, man. It
Honored
is
to be here.
awesome to get to hang with you today. First up, maybe we could talk
I love it.
about this amazing mandolin that you have here. Ferdinand, right?
Ferdinand.
We were just talking about how immaculate this thing is. For being 101 years old, it looks in better shape than this new mandolin that I've been beating up.
It's incredible. Ferdinand Peck was the guy's name who owned it. He was a jeweler, kind of an eccentric guy. He had exotic birds and he dabbled in a lot of different things, but he ended up getting this mandolin in 1923. The tale goes he learned one song on it and just drove his wife crazy. And she said, please stop playing that mandolin. And he put it under the bed. And if you look on the neck, there's only where you can kind of see right there, maybe where he learned something. His thumb was up here. Maybe he played in G or D or, whatever he was driving her nuts with was in D or G.
I hear you, man.
So he put it under the bed, and that's where it stayed until I got it in 2022. Danny Roberts, our good friend, plays with the Grascals. Danny went with me. I bought his plane ticket, and we went out to Salt Lake City because I didn't know enough about him. I wanted to make sure that I was getting the real thing. Mm-hmm. So Danny was, what a friend,
That's awesome,
and he went with me. And we go into this little cafe, this little diner. I'll never forget this. And the case was sitting in the corner, and Danny's like, he's giving me the look, like the case looks good. And we opened it up, and he was like, oh yeah, and Danny was like, I could tell there was like a celebration going on inside his head, and the strings had been on this thing since 1985.
No way. What strings did they make back then for mandolin? I wonder.
Who knows? If I knew, it would be a great shout out to the company because Danny tuned them up real slow and started playing it, and it sounded great. Wow. With strings that were on it since 1985. This was in 2022.
Oh my goodness.
And he's like, oh my goodness. And it's all original. This is the original tailpiece cover. He was a jeweler. He took the Gibson off and he engraved all this fancy engraving in there. And,
it's beautiful.
And everything's original on this. Absolutely everything. The fretboard, the keys, the tuners, tuning pegs. Only thing that's not original is the truss rod cover, which he made himself.
It just goes to show you don't really need to modernize anything about these mandolins. They've been taken good care of. They're good to go, man.
They were built right to begin with. Yeah. I originally got it as an investment piece, but then when we took it back to our friend Dave's house and put new strings on it, I'm like, well, I'm gonna play this thing.
Yeah,
This is my mandolin, know. And so
I've heard you say that playing this mandolin has changed the way that you listen to the mandolin, changed the way that you play the mandolin. Could you go into more detail about that?
A lot of the newer mandolins and the modern style sound of building is leaning more toward the bassier tones. Mm-hmm. And I've been going for that for years. And I've had some mandolins that were super bassy, and I enjoyed that. But it's like the difference between a D28 Martin and a D18, where you've got the bassy droning notes and then the D18 with the clarity that cuts through the mix. I've always been going for those low tones because I wanted basically the mandolin to sound like a mini guitar. That's what I've been wanting, And that's not really the mandolin's place.
Yeah.
I mean, the mandolin is supposed to sound like a mandolin. Mm-hmm. And Bill Monroe's mandolin cut through. Bobby Osborne's mandolin always cut through everything.
Sure did, yeah.
And I'm like, I get it now. I get why those 20s ferns and those lures are so sought after, because it's like, it's a clarity thing. Mm-hmm. I do like this one because, there's some of the lures like Bill's mandolin that almost sounded angry, like it was just loud and just punching through all the time, the tone. And I love that this mandolin can get angry, but there's also some really sweet tones in there too.
Yeah, definitely.
but it's also depends on how I choke up on the bat when I'm swinging too. But
you got to know how to drive an amazing vehicle like that. Yeah, I understand, man. I can't make it sound like that.
yes, you can.
No. I've always wondered, like, having one of these mandolins, do you feel nervous taking it out and performing with it, or do you?
Oh, for sure. Walter Carter at Carter Vintage, he did the appraisal on it, and he said, this is one, if not the cleanest lure I've ever seen.
Wow.
And so there's part of me that wishes I had one that was a little more dinged up, because I know what I'm going to do to it. I'm like a bull in a china shop, you know. I should probably just take my keys and just drop it on the face of it and just get that over with, you know. But this one, I only play it in church, when I play at church, you know, and I don't play it outside a lot unless I know the weather's going to be just right. And I've played it in some theater shows where I use just a microphone, because a lot of the shows that I play, I use a mic, but I also plug up. And then, you know, and I've got an instrument, an old Gibson F5G that I play. I call it my Play Out in the Rain mandolin. This mandolin's had a lot of hours put on it. She's had a few rough nights. The neck's been out of it. It's scratched all the pieces. You know,
the beater,
you know, and it's great mandolin, but I wouldn't take this out, and it's in such nice shape that I'm nervous with it. You know, and I've had it for 2 years. I see other people, and their lures are kind of a little more ragged, and they just like grab it and play it, and I'm like, I'm a little jealous. I'm a little envious of that, but I'm so glad to have Ferdinand. He's an amazing instrument.
It's incredible. It's so cool to get to hear it, and very nerve-wracking playing alongside this mandolin and beside this amazing mandolinist. So thank you so much for bringing it. And
I love every note of it, man. You're absolutely one of the best, and I love what you're doing for the mandolin and all of us mandolin players. I love these videos. They're so much fun.
Thanks, Darren. Thank you so much, man. I'm sure, as folks can hear from that tune we just played, this guy is a master of tremolo and cross picking. And what I love about your playing is that you can just seamlessly transition from one to the next. I struggle with that quite a lot, and was wondering if you had any tips or any suggestions for folks who struggle with it too.
Man, I hadn't really thought about it much, but early on, all the things that really tore me up with the mandolin or the fiddle or the guitar were all right-hand driven. And so I heard bluegrass my whole life, but there was never a mandolin around the house. But the mandolins that I did hear were Bill Monroe, Jethro Burns, Bobby Osborne, and Jesse McReynolds. And so they're all different, totally different styles. When I started playing, it depended on what song I was playing. I'm like, well, this needs to be jazzy, or this needs to be swingy, or this needs to be like aggressive, this needs to be downstrokes, or this would be pretty with some cross picking. And so I just tried to play what fit the song, and so that means switching it up a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
I love your tremolo in particular. It's so rhythmic. Like, you get in and out of the tremolo at just the right time to carry the rhythm of the song. What's your thought process when you're doing that? Are you thinking about every single note that you're playing on the tremolo?
No, really. The mentor I had that taught me the most about the mandolin was a banjo player.
Really?
And he had played with Jimmy Martin. And so it was a lot of... And he's like, it's about getting that started and stopped in time.
Yeah.
And with energy, you know, and a lot of mandolin players play tremolo on slow stuff, but where the energy to me comes from is playing tremolo on fast, the mid-tempo songs.
Right. Yeah.
Because to me that has more energy than...
Yeah.
You know,
I just learned that kick. That's the Old Hometown, right? From Doyle Lawson.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, I can totally tell that I can feel the difference between... and I'm like, that's
yeah.
intensity, yeah. And so he was like, really work on getting that started and getting it stopped in time. And then when he said it like that, I'm like, okay, and getting it even, getting it in time with the rhythm guitar and the banjo.
I guess it's easy to kind of overlook that finesse on tremolo because it just seems like a bunch of random notes that you're playing with your right hand when it really has to be so energetic and so intense like that. You have to, think about those entry and exit points to make the music carry.
And there's a couple of different speeds of tremolo too. And Adam Steffi was always the best at just getting the most even tremolo. And as Adam's playing progressed, that was the biggest thing. He's such an amazing player. But I'm like, if I could play tremolo like that, I would play tremolo all the time. Why is he not playing more tremolo? But
he does. Of course,
yeah,
it's sad. I know what you mean.
But he's the best at it, But I always loved it because that's the only way to play the melody. I grew up in a musical family, and they're like, make the mandolin say the words. And if you're going da 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 da, singing a melody, and the mandolin has no sustain. If you just hit a note and let it ring without playing a bunch of other notes, well, then that's not the melody.
That's a great segue because I was wanting to talk about this. You're an amazing singer and songwriter, and that's something I'm trying to work a little bit more on. How do you feel like your experience as a singer has influenced your playing, like you were saying?
Well, as I get older, every year I'm like simplifying and I'm like getting rid of stuff and I'm trying to get more to just playing less and playing more melody and really where the music really lives, And so being a songwriter, I realize like when I'm playing and singing a song, if there's somebody behind me and they're just doodling and filling, like I don't like fills.
That's understandable, yeah.
And bluegrass is kind of a culture of, hey, everybody play as much as you can all the time. And
guilty.
Well, we all are. We all do it. But Jimmy Martin, I got to spend a lot of time around him, and I heard him say, yeah, if I could just get a bluegrass band to back me up like a country band backs up a country singer. And if you listen to Jimmy Martin's music, everybody's playing rhythm.
That's so true.
The banjo's playing rhythm, the fiddle's playing rhythm, and they're all like they're all playing and they're all killing it, but nobody's playing a bunch of notes. They're all playing timing. Like a country music, a ballad, there's so much space, and it allows the vocal to really stand out. And then when somebody like Stuart Duncan comes up and does play, you're like, wow, the fiddle.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to do is just play less and, play the melody. But I think that's a maturity thing. And most of us never get there.
Oh, man, I got a long ways to go, I think.
Well, hey, bluegrass is like punk rock. It's like shredding. That's what got us into. We're like, I want to shred, man. We got into bluegrass because it's this look at me. I want to pick and showboat attitude. But the music really lives in the real simple music.
Well, and speaking of singing, for folks out there who are starting to sing and play at the same time, I know that's like such a huge challenge. I'm still working on it too. What's been your approach to build confidence doing both at the same time?
Playing strong rhythm, really focusing on that rhythm while you're singing and not speeding or dragging. I'll speed and drag within the same song or the same verse sometimes, but really keeping that rhythm going under the vocal and keeping the rhythm just right, because sometimes I'll sing behind the beat or in front of the beat,
right,
but the rhythm has to be constant.
So you're like thinking almost on two different planes, like your rhythm as a singer and your rhythm as a player. It's tough.
A feel thing.
Wow.
And that's why, as a singer, you want to play with really strong rhythmic players to help you. I honestly, I just think it takes doing it. It just takes a lot of hours in the batting cage swinging the bat. It takes a lot of times on stage. It takes a lot of hours in front of people. And there's a difference between playing at home and then doing it in front of people. There's a huge, huge difference. And it just takes getting out there and doing it.
You might hear my little baby girl singing in the background a little bit.
Hey, she sounds beautiful.
She's got a big voice, that's for sure. Thinking about the mandolin again, I love what you did on this song where you're playing some more cross-picking stuff, more McReynolds style, Jesse McReynolds style cross-picking, which is something I'm so bad at. And I don't know, I can't get those multiple ups the way that I want to. What was your experience getting into this, and how do you get past that hump?
Well, I think it's you start out slow. I think it's like a banjo rule, like down, up, up. And that's not for the faint of heart. There's some people out there who are great at cross picking, and I really I pick my punches with this because there's a certain tempo. If it's one or two more clicks, I can't do it. I cannot play it as fast as Jesse or some of these other players because it's ridiculous. And I think his thumbs were double jointed.
It seemed like he was doing a lot of this stuff.
Tony Rice was like that.
Yeah.
Tony's thumb was like its own. It was doing its own thing, and I can't do that. So about that and a few clicks faster than that I feel comfortable with, but anything that's like super fast cross picking, you can count me out. I'll be back doing my whatever I'm usually doing, but it really fits on some things.
It does, yeah.
I don't do it all the time. It's a flavor to me.
Yeah.
And if you do it all the time, it almost sounds like a Jack in the Box, like a toy, like a,
It does have that kind of quality. What's so cool though, I think it sounds way different than if you were to alternate all the picking strokes though. Like if you were to do down, up, like a, as opposed to like, and again, I'm not very good at it, but it has such a different sound to it. It doesn't like a different momentum that makes the beat feel different too.
Yeah, it's forward. It's forward moving.
For someone just getting exposed to that style, that cross picking from Jesse McReynolds, what would you suggest is a good way to get into it? How would you get started?
Oh, buying the classic Jim and Jesse records. And I mean, when he was young, just listening to that, I loved his playing, and I really, I loved his slow tremolo and all the triple stops that he did, and he did split string.
Ooh,
stuff. He had a wider string spacing, and he also had a fake fingernail with a notch cut in it. And so he would do this split string, and I don't. That's above my pay grade.
I know, me too, man. I've never been confident enough to try that.
No.
Would he change the tuning of the strings to do that? Or just
no, it was regular tuning, but he had an extra wide nut spacing here and bridge, and then he had that acrylic nail, and he would cut a notch in it, and so he could just nail it.
Oh my goodness,
so
that's
he was
so smart.
Yeah, he was getting it, but he would have all these really cool sounds, and especially on slow tunes, I just loved how big the mandolin sounded, and that's why I got into playing double stops and triple stops, and because it just made the mandolin.
It's huge.
You can compete with the banjos and the dobros of the world,
Absolutely, man. And man, you pull some tone. I don't think it's just that amazing lower instrument that you're playing. You've got so much sound coming out of that mandolin. What do you do to make that happen? I feel like such a quiet player sometimes. How do you project more with your instrument?
It's a touch. I think it's a touch thing. I mean, I don't play super hard. As a young player, I probably played way too hard, but as I get older, my pick keeps getting thinner and my touch just keeps getting lighter. But I think it's just like hitting a baseball with a sweet spot of the bat. It's
Wow, that is amazing, man.
And everybody's touch is different, and it depends on what style you're playing too. If I'm trying to play something slow and pretty, I'll ease off the gas and try to play that. But when it comes time to play something boisterous, let's play something boisterous.
Totally. I'm sure that comes from like years and years of experience playing in a band too, where you're having to really project from stage. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about your time in Balsam Range and like what some of your big takeaways were for playing in that amazing band. I mean, you guys had more IBMA awards than I can count, I think, which is amazing. And it's an incredible career that you had with that band. Did some amazing music.
Well, 15 years. I was one of the original members when the band started in 2007. And my big takeaway from that was just early on, I got to play a lot. We did a lot of performances early on, and so it allowed me to spend a lot of hours with the instrument. Western North Carolina musicians and pickers, they have a certain style. Mm-hmm. There's a certain bounce to their playing, a certain rhythm, and they all play with volume. And it's because a lot of the bluegrass is associated with playing for cloggers and playing for dance. And so we did a lot of dances and played for a lot of cloggers early on. And so you learn to kind of be able to play in the trenches, in loud clubs. We did a club gig that we were the house band for, and we had cloggers. It's feet to the fire during that. So it was a lot of hours. That was my takeaway musically, and I got to play with one of the best banjo players on planet Earth, Mark Pruitt. And if you can get your mandolin locked in with his timing, you're golden, and so I got to play with Mark Pruitt for 15 years. And then the other takeaway from playing 15 years in that band was I got to meet so many friends. I got to meet so many mandolin players and go around the country and around the world playing shows. And the best experience a musician can have is being around other musicians. It shows you can learn so much about music, you can learn so much about people, and I always say in bluegrass, you don't make fans, you make friends.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
And it's just, and I got to make so many friends in that 15 years, and I've still got those relationships today moving forward.
That's awesome, man. Well, now, transitioning from being in a band to being the frontman of a band with the Darren Nicholson Band, what new challenges have you encountered, and what have you learned from that experience so far?
Yeah, well, the challenges are it's on you. I didn't start my band because I think, hey, I'm a great player, I'm a great singer, I need to be a front man. I did it because I just needed to play more. I just needed to be in a different environment where I'm learning new songs all the time, and I'm pushing myself. I wanted to be around players that are getting me out of my comfort zone, because a band, if you get in a band, especially a band that's had a lot of songs that are charting, a lot of times you go do a show and people want to hear those songs.
Oh, that's
well,
tough.
If you're not careful, you'll be doing the same songs.
Yeah.
And you can get into a place where creatively you're not growing. And I was like, man, I just want to play more.
Yeah.
And past 4 or 5 years, I started kind of working on my health a little bit. And I'm like, while I'm 41 now, while I've still got some years left, I want to be in a place where I can play as much as I can while my hands are still kind of working. I want to get better.
Yeah.
And just put some hours in with the mandolin and the guitar and writing songs. And so the challenge is, at this point, have been finding time to rest, because I play 4 or 5 nights a week, sometimes 7 days a week.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so inspiring to hear. Like someone of your amazing talent still wanting to push forward like that. I know you have a new record coming out soon. Is that right? Sometime down the pipeline?
Yeah. I did a bluegrass album last year called Wanderer.
Right.
And this new one, I've got 6 songs finished, and I'm just lacking fiddle overdubs at this point of having 8 more. And so it's another bluegrass album, and I wrote every song on the last record, and I wrote every song on this record. So I'm super pumped about it. I've got some great players on it. Ferdinand's featured on it. It's on Mountain Home Music, so wherever you stream music, you can just type in my name and see.
Guys, be on the lookout for that. Yeah, go check out all of Darren's other amazing work. And man, thank you so much for being here. This has been an amazing interview. I've learned so much through the process, and I know other folks out there will really appreciate this. So thank you so much, Darren. This has been a blast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Huge thanks to Darren for being here. This is so fun doing interviews here in person at the studio. If you like this video, I think you'd also like this one right here on screen of another in-person interview that I did with the amazing Wayne Benson right here in this spot. So stick around. You'll be seeing this view again real soon. Thank you so much for watching, for subscribing and liking. I'll see you again soon.